Are you proud to be Hispanic?
Hispanics in Florida now have the first Hispanic car license plate in the United States.
Be a proud Hispanic.
Put the Hispanic plate on your car.
I want to be a doctor.
I want to be a scientist.
I want to be an engineer.
I want to be a police officer. I want to be a professional dancer.
By getting the Hispanic plate for your car,
you will support scholarships and community programs.
Call now or visit HispanicAchievers.org.
My name is Nilmarie Zapata, and I am a Latina role model because I believe that you can overcome any circumstances that come in your way and be the best version of yourself.
Hello, I'm Sandra Rivera, and I'm a Latino role model. Whatever your struggles are in life, whatever you don't have or don't have access to, don't use that as an excuse for not pursuing your dreams and moving forward. Get out of your own way and get out of your comfort zone, and you will be amazed at the growth that you will experience.
Welcome to another edition of Edutv. I'm Greg Perkins, I'm your host, and today we have with us our returning guest, it's Miss Diana Moore, CTA President, Orange County. A lot of things going on.
Good morning, Mr. Perkins.
Good morning.
Good to be back.
Yep, glad to have you back. A lot of things going on. Why don't we start with the current voucher lawsuit? I understand that you guys, do you consider that a loss with the current voucher system in Florida? Let's talk about that.
Yes. As a president of a local teachers union, we are part of our state union known as Florida Education Association, and our state organization filed a lawsuit about the process of the vouchers that are being given to students here in the area as well as around the state. Our feeling is that these vouchers are given to students to leave the public school system and to go to private schools or charter schools. And while we believe in choice, we think that parents should have a choice for where their students go, we have a concern with how those public school dollars are being used at private schools and at some of the charter schools. There isn't a lot of oversight going on with some of these charter schools. You can open the newspaper every day and see that another charter school has failed in the middle of the school year, and the students are left on the steps in the morning looking for a place to go. And of course the public schools will open their arms and welcome those children back and make sure that we get them back on the right course.
Now it seems to me though that the charter schools, they seem to be very well organized all the way from a federal to a state level. Are public school teachers, public school administrators, are you guys working to cohesion to stop some of the overgrowth of charter schools, specifically ineffective charter schools in an area?
Besides the lawsuit that we have filed in Florida, I can't speak on any type of a national initiative regarding the charter schools. I know there are a lot of teachers that speak out against it. If you go on Facebook, you can certainly see that. I think the concern should be as a parent. I think as a parent, if you are going to put your child in the trusting hands of a charter school, you want to make sure that they're going to follow the academic requirements, and you want to make sure that whoever's running the school is properly taking those funds and using them appropriately. And the problem is on both of those accounts, we find a lot of charter schools fail in that they close up their doors, whether they're not meeting the rigors of the requirements for the state or whether there's a financial concern. That's what we tend to see.
They seem to be pretty effective though in siphoning off kids. So how do you stop that? For example, if a kid's in a public school, right? How is it that a charter school is convincing a parent for that kid to leave that school and come and join our charter school that has less resources in some cases?
Well, and that's a great question. And I drove by one yesterday, and what I noticed on the field was a smaller group of students. And I think that's the draw for a lot of parents, is that they have a smaller class size, a smaller number of teachers, that school will embrace their child and welcome them, and there will be more of a safety net because of the numbers. I think that is important, and I think we need to look at that in terms of our public schools and the safety issues that are going on in our public schools. But I also think that you have to look at the academic rigor and the requirements for teachers in the charter schools. They don't have the same requirements for teachers in the charter schools. They don't have the same requirement in terms of testing our students in the charter schools. And so we believe if your tax dollar is going to be siphoned off of the public school rolls and sent to a charter school, that it should be required to perform the same way it does in a public school. And that's, I think, the basis of the lawsuit that was filed by FEA. So until that is basically solved for a lot of parents and taxpayers, there's some concern with the process of the charter schools and the private schools receiving your tax dollars.
But you're not, I'm not going to say you specifically, you're not anti-choice. For example, some kids may work better in a performance-based system, working on computers. Some may work better in a charter school. So how do we keep the whole notion of doing what's best for a particular child without the two entities fighting or warring against each other?
All right, so let's talk about what's best for a child. They had a bill that went before the legislature this year to allow students to leave schools in one county to transfer to another school. And you would think that would be based on academics, that maybe there was a need. And that was the reason that charter schools were started, was to meet an academic need for children, like children with certain disabilities, or let's say the Air Force. I think that was the recent charter school that failed, that they wanted to sort of get children ready for a military career. If children are leaving a county to go to another high school in another county, what we found was it was about sports. It was about going to certain schools because of a coach and their sports team so that they could get academic scholarships. It wasn't about what was best academically for them. So sometimes you have to look at the root of some of these bills and see what's going on and ask some of those additional questions.
Well, there's always more than meets the eye, because I'm not going to be so naive as to think that there's not been a lot of money made in some cases with the growth of charter schools. However, my challenge to public schools are to do something about it. Don't let these guys just come in and take your territory. Market yourself. In some perennial low-performing schools, we've got to get that up. And I know the rigor is there in public schools. I know this.
Okay. I absolutely agree that the public schools need to step up, and they need to step up and get their game a little bit better. But maybe here's the difference we need to look at. Your public schools can't turn away any children. In other words, our client base is everyone can come. We have an open door policy. But some of our charter schools have requirements to get in the door. You have to have had certain test scores. There's certain religious requirements. There's certain gender requirements. And so as you look at all those requirements, you funnel off a certain segment of students that the public school doesn't have to deal with. So when we say that we need to get things better, we believe in choice in a public school system, that there should be choice for parents in a public school system. So let's fix the public schools first before we take the dollars out the door. And I think that means having parents get a little bit more involved in the schools. I know a lot of times parents are like, see you later, you're in charge of my child for 6 to 8 hours. And they're not involved when we have PTA meetings and SAC committee meetings, and we need parents to be involved in that process.
And so that goes back to my point that a lot of these guys just may be beating you at the marketing game.
Okay.
Now, but in fairness to charter schools, there are some really highly effective charter schools that are out there. However, I read the research, and overall, they don't do. It's the same. Okay.
It's not the same.
Well, I'm saying charter schools don't necessarily outperform public schools, is what I'm saying.
Right.
There's no proof that they work any better than the public schools.
Exactly, but there's definitely data to show that they're not stronger than public schools.
Right, I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with
And when you say as far as they're beating us at the marketing game, I don't know any public schools out there that are doing any marketing.
But shouldn't you guys maybe start considering that?
Well, do you want our public school dollars to go to a marketing game, or do you want them to go to helping our students achieve? I think that's where the decision has to be made. I think most parents would say, we don't need you to market public schools. We know you're down the street. We want you doing the best job for our students, helping them become successful and ready to go into society to be good, productive citizens.
I agree with you on the achievement part, but what I'm simply saying, from a business standpoint, they're siphoning off the kids.
You're right.
And that's causing some frustration. So you guys can't You want it to be a fair. I hate to use fight, but you want it to be fair competition, because I just really think in some cases that's what they're doing, especially the ones that are no better than public schools in the way that they educate kids.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I go to a lot of school board meetings where I see the application process, and we have somebody in the school system that reviews the applications. They will get up and they will talk to the school board members and say they haven't met the requirements on the financial or the academic rigors, and many times the school board will approve that charter school in our county, and I've asked why, and they said because they can go to the state and apply for an appeal, and they usually get it. So what they've said is that we're really trying to keep them on track here locally, and so have a little bit more control over that system. Now, I don't know what the percentages are as far as them failing locally, but I know nationwide there's definitely research on that, and they are not out competing the public schools.
Now, just as Florida Public Schools, the leader in data collection, student achievement, saw some recent reports.
Yes.
Also, the charter revolution is pretty much also being led in Florida too. So what I am saying, it seems that the charter school movement is more organized at the legislative level to continue to grow.
Well, what I saw was that the Koch brothers, who have several organizations, I think you mentioned Students First and Step Up, Florida, Americans for Prosperity. They have a lot of money being funneled into their organizations, and they have targeted Florida through some specific legislation that they give to legislators that they take to our Tallahassee and they get passed. And that is why Florida has performance pay for their teachers and such a big influx of charter schools. So everybody's watching us in Florida to see what's happening. I know a lot of our teachers don't appreciate being guinea pigs, and I'm sure our students don't appreciate as we go through this process, because the problem, I believe, is let's get down to the basic situation for students. If you go to a charter school and it fails, that's a loss of a year for a child. That's not something to play with. And so that is why, as a public school proponent, we need to have the same requirements for tax dollars in a public school as these charter schools. Because I'm sure as a parent, you don't want to send your child to a school and find a year later they didn't have the academic rigor, they weren't taking your dollars and using them appropriately, and now your child has to repeat a grade or is not ready to go on to that next grade.
Now, are charter schools required to have certified teachers?
I can't answer that because I think it's changing. I've heard that they are required, but I've heard that there are some that don't have certified teachers. Exactly. So, I don't want to speak for all of them because I know that there are some changes happening in the charter schools.
Oh, okay, great.
So
what do you see as some of the biggest challenges for just teachers overall? Because I think before we came on there, we were talking about the percentage of the evaluation. But of course, there's so many different moving parts with testing. But just kind of give us the simple version.
So how many minutes do we have left?
We have about two minutes.
So if I can sum it up in 2 minutes. I think probably the biggest concern for teachers overall is that the system that's been put in place, specifically in Orange County, to measure whether you're a good teacher or not is very subjective, because it's based on test scores on tests that haven't been validated. And so we already know that the teachers union negotiated a hold harmless agreement for 3 years, and now we have the state agreeing to do the same thing for students, so they're not using the student scores on these tests this year for the students as well. So we have a lot of students taking tests that aren't going to count. And so when you start, and I heard a teacher say this to me yesterday, I told my students they were going to take this test and it was going to be worth so much of their grade. Now I feel like I'm lying, because 3 weeks before school ends, we aren't going to do that, but we're still making them take the test, but we're not going to hold them to the scores. So there's a lot of things that change. It's like building a plane and you're in the air and everything is changing throughout the year. So there's frustration with the changing rules of the game, but there's a lot of frustration with the subjectivity of the evaluation system in terms of what school you're in. You might be in a school where there aren't resources provided to assist you as a teacher, and so you're being evaluated on those particular things that you don't control. And you might be in a school where they have a lot of resources. So there's a lot of variables to this, and what we feel is we're being compared to each other by having to do the same lesson plans, having to do the same tests, And so therefore, the only conclusion that the school will reach is that the problem with the student is it's the teacher. And so we don't feel like that is the only thing to be looking at, that a teacher's role is so much more larger than just a test score for a student. And we believe a student is more than a test score, but we believe that that's where we're at. Everything is based on a test score these days.
This is an interesting conversation. I'm not sure that we're going to get it resolved, which is why we invite all people to come and share their points of views, everybody from superintendents, and we'd like to see more of you as well. We'll also have some choice representatives on here as well. So, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you again, Diana. We need about several of these shows.
All right.
So thank you again for joining us with this segment. Stay tuned. We're introducing something new in our second segment called Teacher Talk. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gloria Puerta from Feed and Fortify Community Organization, today in Latino Role Model. And be yourself. Try to have your purpose in life and be a legacy of service.
My name is Milagros Rivera, and I'm a founder and mentor of Daughters of the Mighty King mentoring program for young girls. I am inspired and encouraged to be here because I want to see a new generation rise up.
Are you proud to be Hispanic?
Hispanics in Florida now have the first Hispanic car license plate in the United States.
Be a proud Hispanic.
Put the Hispanic plate on your car.
I want to be a doctor.
I want to be a scientist.
I want to be an engineer. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a professional dancer.
By getting the Hispanic plate for your car,
you will support scholarships and community programs.
Call now or visit HispanicAchievers.org.
Welcome back to the second segment of EDUTV. I'm your host, Greg Perkins, and today we have Miss Johanna Lopez. She is an AP Spanish teacher at Colonial High School. She's one of the smartest teachers I know, and one of the hardest working. Teachers, we've come up with something really good. It's called Teacher Talk, okay? In this segment, a lot of times teachers have effective teaching techniques or strategies that they use in their classrooms, but a lot of times during their busy day, they don't get a chance to speak with one another about some of the things that they do in the classroom to be effective. So today, Ms. Lopez is going to share one of the strategies that she uses that she's found to be most helpful with her students. And I was inspired to come up with this section because there was a book written like Teach Like a Champion. And basically what this guy did, he just developed his own teaching strategies and techniques. And I said, well, hey, I know some teachers who have the teaching strategies and techniques that are not in the book, but I think would be most helpful. So why don't you tell us about what you have and a strategy that you've used in your classroom and why it works?
Well, during my AP Spanish language class, I used the technique of vocab and tone play.
Okay.
The students have to write a play and dramatize the play.
Oh, wow. They have to write their own play?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
But they have to use the vocabulary words in context and also use a specific tone. The teacher can assign the tone, or the students can choose from a list the type of tone they're going to use to do or create this.
And I would imagine that that helps people to develop more effective communication strategies. Like I shouldn't say, hello, Miss Lopez, how are you, right? So that might be a bit much, okay.
Yes, because the standards is on the presentational speaking, you're right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the standard is presentation of speaking and writing. Okay. So why don't you tell us about it? How did you come up with this strategy? I think you said, you can use it in plays, and how do you know it would work? So just walk us through that process.
Most of the problems that we have when we teach vocabulary is that they just memorize it and they do not use it in the real life. They have to know how to use the vocabulary in context.
Okay.
And if they do something fun and something creative, they're gonna have those words for the rest of their lives. They can use it every day when they need it.
Right, because when students take the SAT or ACT, they are going to see those words, even the new FSA. So tell me about the steps, because when I came up with Teacher Talk, I said that I'd like teachers to come in and talk about subject, grade, standard, and how you know it would work. So can you walk us through this strategy and what some of the things that your kids may have come up with?
Well, first of all, they have to review the vocabulary words.
Okay.
You know, the teacher needs to review the words with an assignment or maybe a game. She can, you know, find out what is she gonna do with the review of the vocabulary words. And then after that, they have to review the type of tones.
Okay.
Maybe the tones in the unit, or maybe the tone of the story that they are reading, or the drama. Also, she has to divide, or he has to divide the group in 4, 2, 3, just depend.
Okay.
Even on one, because we have to do the differentiated
Instruction.
strategy,
Okay.
instruction, because we have to take in consideration the way the student feel about the class and about the way they learn, he learn or she learn. The students will create the dialogue or monologue,
Okay.
or the short skit based on the subject or topic that the teacher choose. Maybe a lesson of life, for example. And she just identified the vocabulary words that they're gonna use, and they can use a specific tone.
Okay.
She can choose for this is the list of the tones, or maybe you can choose for this tone, or maybe everybody's gonna do this tone, maybe sarcastic, or maybe happy, or pessimistic, or optimistic.
So it's a good exercise for teaching students how to use words within context, as opposed to the old stuff when I was in school. The teacher just say, hey, here's some words, look them up. And you know, I had a friend, right? You know what this guy said? He goes, Greg, understanding words is easy. He said, all you do is just write the word again. And that's what the word means. So certainly we've come a much longer way than that.
Yeah.
So you're actually making the kids create a skit after you've already introduced a certain set of vocabulary and identified the tone. So where do you pull those resources from? And I know that teachers have a lot of standards and objectives that you have to make. So is there a particular place that you pull them from that you know that they're going to be able to use this stuff again in its proper context?
No, you know what? Based on the format of the AP Spanish language test, they have a part of conversational speaking, and they have to record their voices during the test. And this is a way that they can just relax when they're doing this, and feel more free to create. And the day of the test, they're gonna feel more comfortable with the activity.
Now, AP, a lot of parents may not know that. What is the basic difference between an AP Spanish course as opposed to just a regular Spanish course, an introduction to Spanish? Are those standards already preset?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an advanced placement course. They could have a third year. In this case, they could have a third year of university level course.
Oh, wow.
Through this class after they pass the test, and it's very high level class. It's more than honor.
Oh, okay. So the kids, they're going to come with a certain level of expectation since this is an AP class.
Yes.
So to ask them to write a skit using words in context, that you may not see that type of assignment in a normal class.
Well, but you know what? We can use that in a very basic level.
Okay.
Maybe give them like a skit with fill in the blanks. Maybe it's gonna be easier for the basic levels of Spanish in this case. But maybe on the advanced class, they just write the complete sentence, that create the sentences and the paragraph that they're gonna use it during the skit.
Okay, so it almost would seem to me though, like with the new Florida standards, the new FSA, on some level, even the kids who aren't in AP Spanish, they're still gonna have to perform at that level, right?
Yes.
On the reading part?
Yes.
So do you often work at your school with other teachers to come up with similar lesson plans to meet these same standards?
Yes, we have a PLC meetings.
Okay.
That is, we try to be aligned and with the other teachers and try to find out what are you gonna cover in your class, or during that year, because I want to follow whatever you start, on that specific level.
Now, what about this assignment? At what point did you know that this was an effective technique or strategy? Was it the student's success, their feedback, survey? How did you know this particular strategy was successful?
It's not only the grade, but also the body language and the way they interact with each other. You can see their faces, they feel comfortable, they feel happy, they want to participate, they have fun about that. You can see that they want to create more, and also, can we do it again? When are we going to do this again? They get excited with the activity.
Right, because it's a practical application of how you really interact with people in the real world.
Yes.
Right. Yes. As opposed to, let's spell these words, and then we'll provide the definition with them.
Exactly.
Okay. So, how is it that some of the challenges that teachers are facing nowadays, how do you know whether or not something's been successful? I know that you guys give what you call benchmark tests. So to say that, okay, 80% of my kids, according to this standard objective, were effective. So if they're not, how do you go back and sort of reteach that? What are some of the indicators that would tell you that you would need to reteach a strategy?
You know what, if you have a student that doesn't want to do this oral part of the class, you have to accommodate this student in another environment. Maybe, okay, we can do it individually. You could do it to me, to make him or her feel comfortable with the activity and make them learn at her pace. Something that doesn't make him feel uncomfortable or isolated from the rest of the group. But we can, make them successful, if we accommodate the students to a specific type of environment, and, how I already explained to you.
So you all, in addition to the material and information that you already have, there's a lot of creativity that just has to come from the teacher itself.
Yes.
So tell me about that when you say, well, I have to make this adjustment because the curriculum and the materials I have, I don't think it's effective for teaching that. So do you attribute you being able to come up with this strategy just kind of based on your years of experience?
Yes, because the type of students that we have now, they're more visual, they're more used to texting, to computers. If we just give them a piece of paper, or maybe make them read during the class, only read or maybe only write, they're gonna get kind of boring. We just want them to be motivated. And I think, through this activity, they can be more motivated and more happy. I can see on their faces.
Yeah, but so the whole idea is to take that information off of that page and to turn it into something that's applicable, that the kids can really use.
Exactly. Yes, because you want the students to make connections. That's part of our standards also. We have them to learn something that they connected to the real world.
Okay. And that also applies to the FSA to show that they are actually learning what you're teaching. Because a lot of times you're teaching and they may not be learning.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lopez.
Thanks to you.
Thank you for joining us on Edutv, and I hope that you have enjoyed Teacher Talk. Good night.
My name is Nilmari Zapata, and I am a Latina role model because I believe that you can overcome any circumstances that come in your way and be the best version of yourself.
Hello, I'm Sandra Rivera, and I'm a Latina role model. Whatever your struggles are in life, whatever you don't have or don't have access to, don't use that as an excuse for not pursuing your dreams and moving forward. Get out of your own way and get out of your comfort zone, and you will be amazed at the growth that you will experience.
Hi, I'm Gloria Puerta from Freedom 45 Community Organization, today a Latino role model. And be yourself. Try to have your purpose in life and be a legacy of service.
My name is Milagros Rivera, and I'm a founder and mentor of Daughters of the Mighty King mentoring program for young girls. I am inspired and encouraged to be here because I want to see a new generation rise up.